What did I tell y'all? What did I tell you? I told y'all when this whole before Deshaun Watson even got here, I told y'all that this Baker Mayfield trade is not going to be as smooth or as immediate as people think because his trade value is very complicated for a number of reasons. One, there's just a lot of options out there, right? If you want to get a 1 year rental at quarterback, you could have gotten Matt Ryan, you could get Marcus Mariota, you could get Jameis Winston, you can get a litany of former top five picks from not too long ago, right? We saw Mitchell Trubisky available. We saw everybody from the 2016 draft 2015 or 16 draft available. You can even get you Carson Wentz or Jared Goff if you really wanted to, right? Like all of these guys who were early draft picks were available, and I thought the market would heat up just because of the fact that all of those guys, even now, what we know about them still seem to be better prospects than betting on Kenny Pickett or Matt Corral. You could throw in Malik Willis in there, but I think that's maybe a better bet. But it's looking like Malik Willis gonna go top five. As crazy as that sounds, he's probably gonna go about top five or at least top 10. So when you're in that situation, and while the market for Pro Bowl level quarterbacks is scarce, the market for just below Pro Bowl level quarterback, that ain't a scarce market. That is a oversaturated market. It's something that we have seen throughout the NFL where guys like, let's say, maybe Baker would be a good example, but a guy like Baker 10 years ago would have probably gotten like a 6-year deal after his third year, right? Like Andy Dalton did or something like that, right? Where teams would just be like, okay, he's decent, we'll pay him. Teams have went away from doing that. They don't pay just average quarterbacks as much as they used to, right? Because of the Jared Goff deal, because of the Carson Wentz deal, people are more hesitant to give long-term deals to quarterbacks who aren't necessarily all pro caliber. So since that's the case, the money has gone up for those guys, right? The all pro caliber quarterbacks, the money has gone up for them tremendously. And the money, especially the long-term money for the average quarterbacks has been, and we could say Kirk Cousins exists, so that kind of busts the theory. But Kirk Cousins is a Pro Bowl level quarterback, at least in the NFC, right? Like you can make the argument that he's the second best quarterback in his division and maybe one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFC. If you really want to make the argument, you can make that argument, right? With the guys that are available right now, you really can't make that argument, right? Matt Ryan goes to the Colts, and all of a sudden he goes from being, what was a top 7 quarterback in his conference to, oh yeah, Matt Ryan's here, right? It's not that big of a deal. So that is something that I always felt like was going to impact Baker's trade value, was that, the teams just aren't willing to gamble as much on this. And also when it comes to Baker Mayfield, you can look at it one way, and the way I've seen people look at it before this whole fiasco popped off was, oh, well, Baker had a couple of good years. Teams are going to be dying to just throw money at a quarterback or throw picks at a quarterback that's had a couple of good years. And usually that is the case when you are an early draft pick and you have had a couple of good years. But the thing we have to remember with Baker Mayfield is Baker Mayfield was drafted number 1 overall, but only one team was taking Baker. Well, only a couple of teams were taking Baker Mayfield number 1 overall that year, right? Like this wasn't a situation like with Sam Darnold, where a lot of people wanted to take Sam Darnold number 1 overall, or even with Carson Wentz, where a lot of people were willing to take Carson Wentz number 1 overall, right? Like that wasn't the gamble with Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was a surprise at number 1 overall because he wasn't ultimately somebody that a lot of people were going to go after at number 1 overall. And even when I listen to people who are defending Baker Mayfield and trying to ride in his camp, even now, the issue that I hear in those defenses of Baker Mayfield is the exact problem why Baker Mayfield can't get traded nowhere right now. And that is because whenever you hear people defend Baker Mayfield, what are they saying? He's tough. He's he's a gritty guy and all this intangible stuff, right? It's all intangibles that people use to defend Baker Mayfield. It's very rarely tape that they use to defend Baker Mayfield. And that's not a good situation to be in, right? People don't want to trade for intangibles. At the end of the day, you can find a tough quarterback in free agency, right? If that's all you're looking for is toughness and grit. But a good quarterback, and that's hard to find, right? And the gamble with Baker Mayfield is a gamble. Like, it is not something that you feel comfortable putting assets in because the man has been wildly inconsistent throughout his career, right? It would be better for him if he had been more mediocre but more consistent throughout his career than for him to have shown the wild highs and lows that he has had, because there have been experiences that have just soured GMs on the type of dude that Baker Mayfield is, right? There are the 5 teams that have, well, I don't know if it's 5, but there are the couple of teams, the Jets and the Bills, who have spent real money on Ryan Fitzpatrick to be a franchise quarterback. Like, you remember that, right? That burned in people's faces. The Jay Cutler experience burned in people's faces. Like, teams are not willing to commit long-term, especially analytical front offices are not willing to commit to somebody long-term or commit $18 million to a quarterback that they ultimately see as wildly inconsistent. They would rather deal with Jimmy Garoppolo than Baker Mayfield, because at least they know what they're getting and they know what they have to build around. With Baker Mayfield, the thing is that one year, and we've seen this in Cleveland a couple times, right? In 2018 and 2020, he played so well, we thought we could build the whole thing around him and go to the Super Bowl. That's what we thought here in Cleveland, right? Because he was so good in 2018 and 2020. And in 2021 and 2019 come around, and he's so bad that we don't feel like we can go over 500 with him no matter what's around him, right? Like, that is ultimately the issue with Baker Mayfield, is the inconsistency. And the inconsistency is a problem because when you want to build around a young quarterback, which Baker Mayfield still is a young quarterback, you want to know what you're going to get out the dude, right? Like, you want to have confidence that if you spend a lot of money on some assets, some wide receivers and offensive line, that he's going to play at a competent enough level and a consistent enough basis to where that's going to pay off. And with Baker Mayfield, that's the issue right now, is that nobody has that trust that they're going to be able to get that from him, right? At least not right now when there are other options available. When there was Matt Ryan available. Now, that's the one shoe to drop. If you haven't heard, you're going to hear right now. Matt Ryan has been traded to the Colts. And now the Colts were like Baker's number one destination. It has come out that Baker was not the Colts' number one option. They weren't really that interested in Baker Mayfield. I guess some of the reports that came out before were a little overstated on the interest that the Colts had in Baker Mayfield. So now what's the market? Maybe Atlanta. But if Atlanta just traded Matt Ryan, like, how invested are they at really having a good quarterback this year? They're probably just clearing space for a young guy. And again, they're probably not going to invest in Baker Mayfield. And then there are the Seahawks, right? But if they're the only team that's coming to the table, then you ain't got nothing to bargain with. So here's what's going to happen. Since there aren't that many teams right now that are interested in Baker Mayfield, and since it seems like the Seahawks are in a position where they ain't really got to do nothing at quarterback, unless they really want to do something, right? They have Drew Lock there, which is it, but they ain't really got to do nothing there. Like, they can wait. This is going to go on for a while. Like, I don't think this is going to happen before the draft. Now that I say that, it's probably going to happen before the draft, but I don't think right now, as of Tuesday morning, that this is going to happen before the draft, simply because there's not a big enough market for the Browns to get anything that they want out of Baker Mayfield. Now, I know the report is that they asked for a first, and that was probably when they didn't have a quarterback on the roster. They were asking for a first. I bet that price has gone down significantly if Matt Ryan went for a third. Then, that price has gone down. I can't believe Matt Ryan went for less than what Carson Wentz did, but the prices are going down right now. If you're the Cleveland Browns, the time to pull the trigger on a Baker Mayfield trade is not right now, right? Because right now, prices are dipping. There's options out there, and teams have all the leverage in the world because they can say at the end of the day, we'll just draft the quarterback, right? So what they need to do is wait till after the draft, more than likely, to have some of these teams strike out on their quarterback, right? Because everybody think they're going to get whatever quarterback they want right now. So have them strike out on whatever quarterback they think they're going to get in the draft. And then Then once teams look at their rosters, reassess, and we're talking about in May, and let's be real here. They have Jacoby Brissett. They have Deshaun Watson. When you talk about the Cleveland Browns, Baker Mayfield ain't going to have nothing to do, and he wasn't going to have anything to do anyways because he's still recovering from that labrum surgery and wasn't really scheduled to come back till August, well, July. So it wasn't like he was going to be a part of OTAs anyway, so nothing's really changing. We don't have any guarantees on his money until the season starts, so we can wait this thing out. Right? Everybody's in a position to wait this thing out. So I would expect that they're going to wait this thing out because it makes sense, right? After the draft, if somebody gets injured or if something happens with the player, then all of a sudden Baker Mayfield, his value is going to go up because at the end of the day, yes, does he have issues with how he rubs people the wrong way in the building? Absolutely. Does he have issues with his wild inconsistency? Yes. Does he not? I don't want to say he's lazy, but there are things that you would wish he would have dedicated a whole offseason to when it comes to his footwork. There have been problems for 4 years now. Does he not do those things? Yes, he does not do those things. He has handled this whole situation wrong. But at the end of the day, he's a good enough quarterback to where if you throw him out there, your season ain't going to be a complete wash, right? It's not like starting Case Keenum. You know what I mean? You have some hope. It's not going to be a lot of hope, but you have some hope, right? That he could bounce back, have a good season, and give you some promise. And then, if you buy low here, you might be able to get a long-term deal with him or whatever you want to do with him. God bless him in his future. But that's the situation right now when it comes to Baker Mayfield in this whole trade scenario. I would expect this to wait a little while, right? The same way that I told you guys from the beginning, the whole Clowney thing. Look, Clowney was going to hit free agency, and we're going to wait, right? This probably going to go till April, right? With Clowney, it's going to go till, if they bring back Jarvis, it ain't going to probably happen till April. All of these things are going to wait. The Browns are waiting now to get leverage to make moves that they want to make. That's what they're on right now, or at least that would be the smart play. So I think we have had a flurry of free agency moves. Now we're going to get to the point to where they're going to wait some things out in April to see if they can get what they want, right? If Clowney gets to a point where he's not getting the offers that he thinks he should get, he looks at the Browns and go, hey, man, they could be really good. I know I could play good in this system. All right, I'll take the deal that they're offering. Maybe I'll try to get a couple of extra guarantees, but ultimately I'll be fine playing under that number. Same thing's going to go with Jarvis Landry, right? If they want to bring back Jarvis Landry or go after Will Fuller, they're going to wait, right? They're not going to be one of the first teams to sign any of these guys. They're going to wait to see, hey, are you not getting the deal that you want? Come sign a 1-year deal here. A little bit less money than you would have gotten, but we're going to be a good team. We expect to be a good team, and there's going to be a lot of opportunity for you to shine, right? I think the genius of the whole offseason was bringing in Jacoby Brissett because I think it's underrated the opportunity that being the backup quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, at least this year, could be for you because the Cleveland Browns have a good amount set. And if you can just be competent at quarterback, your numbers are going to look pretty good if you end up starting because of Watson being suspended for the whole situation that he's in. So if that's the case and you get in here and you play 6 good games, or something like that, or maybe just 4 good games, or maybe just 2 good games, all of a sudden you're going to hit free agency and you're going to be a big target for a lot of people. You have revamped your opportunity. That's why I'm kind of surprised Marcus Mariota wasn't into, hey, let me come to Cleveland and then I can really recoup my value, just because if I have 2 good games or 3 good games, I'm set. And then I don't have to play for the rest of the year, right? That's the opportunity that would be there, is that in Cleveland, you might have an opportunity to start. And if you do, it ain't going to take much for you to look impressive with everything that the Cleveland Browns have, because this is a win-now roster, right? If you go to somewhere like Atlanta where Marcus Mariota went, that's not a win-now roster. That's a pretty average NFL roster. So if you come to Cleveland, you play here, it might be at a discount, but if you do well in whatever span of games you get to play, which is not going to be a whole season more than likely, then all of a sudden for doing what, a quarter of the work, you're going to get the money that you want in free agency the next year. Now Marcus Mariota's in a situation where he has to play like 17 games and he might have to be good for 10 of them. We don't know if Marcus Mariota is good for 10 games. We know Marcus can have 3 or 4 good games, and if he has 3 or 4 good games, teams are going to be ridiculously high on his value and sign to a huge contract next year. But that's why I was kind of surprised when I heard the Marcus Mariota stuff. I know people are like, well, he wants to start, but if he was really like, I don't know. I would have looked at that situation differently if I were him. Now, I'm ultimately happy with Jacoby Brissett because I think Jacoby Brissett can be competent in this offense, do some things, win some games if he's asked to do that. And if he does those things, he's going to have a long-term future in the NFL, and he's going to at least make double figures for the rest of his career if he just does that. I mean, look at Chase Daniel. Chase Daniels played like 2 good quarters in his entire career on good teams, and he's still getting paid off that 2 good quarters. So that's why I was kind of surprised on that whole situation. But that's the Baker situation, and kind of in general the situation with any free agency moves. I know a lot of y'all are just like refreshing Twitter and wondering when more news is going to break. I don't think we're going to have a lot of breaking news. I think this is now the time, and I'll start doing it on this channel, where we're going to start evaluating some of the moves that the Browns have done, right? We're going to look at some Amari Cooper tape. We're going to look at some Watson tape, some Brissett tape, some Jakeem Grant tape, and really evaluate the moves that they have made so far, because I think we're going to have a little bit of time before they make the next move. Again, I think we'll probably wait until like early and mid-April till they do something again, because they're trying to wait things out till teams get to the draft, so they know where they're at. I don't think the Browns are going to get an extra draft pick for this year. I think any compensation that they get will be in 2023. That's just where I think they're at. So yes, is it not a good situation right now when it comes to getting any value for Baker Mayfield? Absolutely not. The Browns are not in a good situation. They do not want to trade him right now. And if you do trade him, you better get a big lick out of it, because this is not the time to trade him, right? So they're probably going to hold off, and this thing is going to probably drag until May. And look, I know people are worried when they hear that it's going to affect the locker room, but Baker Mayfield ain't going to be in the building. Baker Mayfield is going to be at home. With Baker Mayfield, he's gonna be at home, so we ain't gotta worry about that. He's gonna be at home. He don't want nothing to do with this. They have already signed a backup. He ain't gonna be in the building no matter what. So they'll trade him when it's time. This is time to be patient, wait things out, see what the market's like for Jarvis Landry, see what the market's like for Jadeveon Clowney, Will Fuller, Akeem Hicks, all of those guys, and then just wait it out and see if we can get them at the number that the Browns want them to be at in order to make this whole thing work cap-wise. So that's kind of the general situation when it comes to free agency. I know a lot of people were concerned that like things aren't happening immediately, but I think this is the time where we regroup, start actually talking about some of the football stuff that they have done so far. And then by the time we're done with that, there'll probably be some announcements on some other moves. But that's where I would expect, and that's where my expectations are. But let me know what your expectations are. Do you think the Browns are going to get something done even faster than I think? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Y'all have a great day. Have a good night.